So, an influencer recently married, engaged in some safari, right? And one of the things that I always think about when I think about influencers and like influencer culture is I'm always running the numbers, right? I'm always like, how much was this villa, right? Because I'm like, this is like $5,000 a night. You're talking you're talking crazy, exuberant amounts of money, like rich, right? You out here playing with the tigers and the safari, like all these different things. And I think something that really grieves me, right, when I think about this particular story, and I'm looking at her parents on the CBS, and I'm like, you know, seems to come from a decent family, right? And I'm not going to say decent family. That's way too bold of a statement to make, but I want to say, I mean, and then who knows if her parents are married? I don't know. Let me not even go down that path because that's completely, we don't know, right? But what I will say is that I think right now, this cultural trend, this phenomena of encouraging young girls, and it's not just black girls, right? Let me just make that very clear. It's not just black girls. This encouragement of young women to go out and date these very predatory men. First of all, let me tell you this. This is nothing new, right? It was just very understood back in the day that these young women or women who chose this path, right, to date these quote unquote rich guys and to willfully seek them out in a very like, you know what I mean? Like persuasive type of like way, right? With this sense of, there's no boundaries. There's no judgment, right? It's just a matter of being bought, right? There was an understanding that this was going to be sex work. Okay. And I don't know why we don't really want to talk about that. Maybe because y'all not old enough. You know what I mean? Like, I think now it's time to like really start having conversations because you're not old enough, right? Even if women are of a certain age, like you can just tell that the way that they move is just not very wise, right? Because point blank period, if you're seeking a man who has money, like you're willfully seeking him, willing to do it, you can be bought. And that means you're going to be exploited. That means you're going to be manipulated, right? And one thing I will just say too, because I'm really trying to get my thoughts together, because this is something that is just so big. Like there was just this young girl, 16-year-old, met some guy on the internet, runs off with him. Granted, we know that that's happened in the past, but this guy's like 40 something, ended up pretty much putting this girl into sex traffic work, right? Her family's on the news. They're like, we don't know where she is. We don't know what's going on. Well, come to find out, they found her all across the state line. She was found in some hotel, right? By the grace of God. Okay. And I need y'all young girls to hear me, and I need y'all to hear me loud and clear. I don't even know if you even listen to the Renaissance Room podcast, right? I don't even know where my viewers are. I think most of my viewers are a little bit older, millennial like me. But if you got little cousins, I need you to tell them right now, because I'm going to tell you right, I'm going to be real with you 100%. You want to be grown? All right. You want to be grown. You want to think you're really about that life? Then be a woman about it. Be a woman about what you're about to get into. All right. Because I think for so many of y'all have no idea. No idea. And it really blows my mind. Like no amount of manifestation, no amount of spiritual affirmations and chakras and crystal rocks, none of that is going to protect you from a predator. This is real life. Do you see what I'm saying? And I just think we're living in a day and age where there is this sort of normalization of putting women in very dangerous situations. And then we want to go off and say all men, or we want to go off and say it's like, no, I can very clearly look at the situation and I'm like, what is going on here? Matter of fact, where was I? I think I was running errands with my daughter, and I see this young black girl. And I want to say young, y'all, I'm fairly young, right? She's in her 20s maybe, with this old white dude. And this is something that I'm noticing time and time and time again. Now, this doesn't look like a situation to where she's taken outside her will, right? This looks like a situation to where this is somebody who's being influenced by this media in real time. And I don't think y'all realize it. Like people who come online and tell you, oh, just use him for his money. Who cares? As long as he's paying the bill. Do you realize they don't care about your safety and your well-being? They don't know you. They don't care. And there's no possible way that you can sit on and live. I don't care how many TikTok videos, how much you're never going to sit here and talk about the ramifications of this. You're never going to sit here and hit every nuance about danger, right? No, it's not going to be no cute, sassy, you popping gum, turning around being like, oh, I'm out of here. No, baby, you locked in. It's slow. Do y'all not understand? You're dealing with grown men out here. Grown men, men who are in situations where they have way more resources than you, flying you here, flying you there, and you stuck. And now you're sitting here stuck, bro. Sitting here stuck. Family don't know what's going on with you. Already got situations within black families and black dynamics around young black girls and what that looks like and the lack of safety and protection and so forth. So you know you don't have no support system. You know ain't nobody gonna come out here and save you. Nobody has money to get you from freaking you know what I mean? Pangea. Nobody has any money to get you from Thailand. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And the thing is, I'm coming on here and I'm trying to get my thoughts together, but I'm also frustrated and I'm simultaneously passionate because it's like, it's not that you can't live life, but it's like, look at what we're encouraging. And it makes me angry because it's like, it's falling back on black women. Like, this is the type of harm that we perpetuate in our community when we are so in love with money. We are so in love with money. So many of us come from nothing. So many of us don't even know what it's like to have a fresh pair of shoes on the first day of school. All right. And so that's why we are so easily bought. That's why we don't care. We don't want to hear about history. I ain't never seen so many people so in love with white old men in general. What are we doing? Back in the day, back in the day, if it was 16, a 30-year-old man was talking to me, I'm disgusted. Can't talk about no money. What? Disgusted. Call the police. Run away. He's a pervert. We understood that. Now we're living in a day and age where there are no boundaries between the lines. Y'all think these young girls think this is cute. They think this is cute. And you know, this is all a ripple effect. It started off with rappers being way more sexually nude, right? It started off like that. And I don't want to hear about old Lil Kim. Yeah, I know. Yeah, but there was still some level of like, boundaries a little bit. Like, maybe not boundaries, but like, we didn't have social media. It wasn't in our face every day. You know what I mean? And we didn't have to see Little Kim walking down the street and being in our faces every day in booty shorts. You know what I mean? Or a thong in that, rather, right? In her underwear. Let me just say that. Let me not be vulgar. In her underwear, right? But today we don't have that. And these women don't care. That's why I'm saying, like, I'm at a point now where it's like, bro, and I know I'm all over the place, but because I'm trying to get my thoughts together, because I'm so disheartened, because I can very clearly see how this line of thinking translate into black girls being murdered at the hands of old men. And I'm saying old men because I'm pretty sure that this is not the only situation that's taking place. Now, I will say something that I'm noticing that's a lot more common with these young girls and these black women are that they're dating guys outside of their race. And I know y'all don't want to talk about the racism. I know y'all think that we live in a very perfect world. I know you think if you just do your affirmations and if you get you a bad wig and you just think that, you are the exception to the rule and you're going to erase history and you're going to erase stigma and you're going to erase, stereotypes and you're going to erase this huge elephant in the room, right? This history that is so grotesque that depended on your labor, right? That depended on your body, right? I know you want to erase all that. I know y'all don't want to hear that because that's too heavy. That's too heavy. Y'all don't want to talk about that. Y'all want to just focus on, oh, I'm spinning like a ballerina. It's a perfect world. I get what I want. If I manifest it, then it's mine. No. No, no, no. This is why we debunk all of that. Not because I'm a Christian, but because it's like, and hey, listen, say what you will. Say what you will. But you know what happens when you think like that? Stuff like this. And I'm not using her life as a ploy to be funny or like, no, I'm saying stuff like this because there's no grounding. There's no wisdom. You see what I'm saying? There's no wisdom. That's not practical. Marrying this old white man for what? Money? Not practical. Not practical. You don't even, what? Do you even find this old geese? Do you even find him freaking attractive? What are we doing? But let me stay focused because I feel like this episode is just not giving my best work. In part, I'm tired. In part, I'm just sad. I'm sad because I just know that this black woman, she's not the only person who's lost her life in these situations. Like, there's so many other black women who have been displaced in the name of, being flued out, and we don't hear about their stories. And it's not just necessarily a white man. I don't even know if he was white, child. Just any man, You know what I mean? Any man where there's this power dynamic and women are playing into it because every black woman right now is in a state where you're trying to be white and you're trying to live up to their standards. And you believe that if you can just be more feminine, if you can just have more, your powder room, right? If you can just have more material comfort, then you too will be white and you will be given the luxuries of white women. Do you not know our ancestors, right? They would, watch over the children of white women, do all their cleaning, their laundry, they just hold down their entire household, right? Do you not know that they were the ones who were putting away white women's pearls, right? Walking hours, right? Long, long walks to these homes to clean these homes for these white women and to nanny their children, just wishing that they too could have a little bit of comfort, that they could have a nicer blouse like the white woman, right? And they weren't trying to sell sex. They were being, sexually abused, right? And forcefully, right? By, white men when they would work in these houses and things like that. But they didn't have that desire. That desire didn't come from self-hate. It came from an inequality, right? Because black women were very much aware that they were women, right? I mean, hello. So I know there's a little bit of a history lesson there, but this is why you need to know the history, right? Because these desires that y'all are having, this is nothing new. You are not the first black girl, right? Or the first black woman to desire more for yourself, right? I know you look around, you see your mamas and your uncles and your aunties and everybody's, got some drugs in the community, got some substance abuses in the community, right? Everybody's working their little menial jobs and it's not fancy and it's whack. And you're just like, oh, I can never work a job. I know that's what you're thinking. I know that's what you're thinking, but you got to do your study to know why that's a faulty way of thinking. And you're looking down on yourself. And so that's why you look up to white people, right? And you look up to immigrants and you look up to those of other cultures who have material comforts. And as you're doing that, right, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And so you sign up for situations that are not safe, fast forward. And this is the result. So this won't be the end. I think as much as we want to try to make it more than what it is, no, this is the reality. Because here's the thing. For black women and black girls, there are no role models, right? You come into the world as a black woman, you're trying to figure out who you are. Many of us struggle with identity as black people, because of American society, because of a lack of an ancestral, root. We don't really have that type of footing, right? White people can easily trace it back to Europe or, what other family heirlooms, right? We don't have that. We've been displaced. We've had to sell property and sell, all of our family heirlooms. We don't have photo books. We don't have that, right? At least not up north. I think down south, they might have a little bit more of that, but even still not really, right? We've seen what happened with Hurricane Katrina. So black people are always and have always been displaced within American society. And so we don't really have any roots. And that's where for some of us, we do tend to lean into our Christian faith because it's been a constant. And so we don't really have that historical footprint that can say, this is who I am, right? I look at, with just great reverence and admiration for the black families in Martha's Vineyard, right? They have the history, they have the lineage to say, this is who we are, right? We are Spelman graduates, right? We are Morehouse graduates. Like they can look at it and say, this is who we are. And for many of us, we don't have that, right? Our fathers, there's been incarceration within our families. There's been, a lot of gun violence within our families, right? Substance abuse. So many of us don't have a lineage to stand on and be proud of. So what happens is we are then susceptible to the media, and the media is constantly changing its goalposts and constantly shifting what it is to be black, right? But there is a constant, and I think, it's a lack of identity and in a sense of it being rooted, right? And so I think that leaves a lot of people susceptible to whatever the trend is currently, right? If it's using men, getting money, if it's marrying white men or foreign men, then that's what it's going to be, right? And so it's really sad because I know you think of it as a light thing, or you look at it like it's a one-off, or you look at it like, Jalen, you're reaching, but I'm not. You know what I mean? This is a real thing. I don't think we realize how social media changes our perception and then influences our decisions, right? Do you think that this black girl, if she was like living where she was living with her family doing, do you think she would have just willfully desired to marry a white man and go off to East Africa or wherever they were, to some safari with this man? No. Why? Because that's not a cultural norm for black women and black, girls to be so, lustful, right, after white men, even if they did have money, right? That's not a cultural norm. That's something that has been influenced by our culture and thus has shaped our behavior, right? And when you have a lack of identity and you have a woman or rappers or whoever coming onto the internet saying, hey, this is what it is to be a woman. Get your money, do what you got to do. Right. And this is a woman who is standing in a place of power, or at least a place of perceived power, right? She's talking down or she's talking at you, right? And she's got this sense of confidence and she's charismatic, right? We don't oftentimes recognize charm or narcissism in women because it's something that we are just so prone to always see when it comes to men. But women can be very narcissistic as well. And typically it shows up as someone who is maybe more knowledgeable or maybe someone who's more, and really, we talk about women more specifically and Black women, right? You're talking about people who feel this sense of, hopelessness, right? Many times Black women are feeling a bit disenchanted, right? We're feeling disempowered. And so when someone comes out and they're like, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you, right, how to feel strong in relationships. I think every woman can relate to not being chosen, right? Not being desired, not having a guy buy you nice things or whatever, right? Whatever the American romantic ideal is, right? And many of us have fallen short of that, right? And so when someone comes out as essentially the savior, right, of that, and something I was actually listening to recently was a podcast by NPR, and she spoke about how you just humans, right? She spoke about how humans just really have this need to worship something. And I thought that was so profound. And I think about just, what the Bible says about that as well. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not here to convert anybody. Like, you do what you want to do in your life. You know what I mean? But there's a reason why, for me personally, I'm glad that I found Christ. And I mean, like, I've always had Christ in my life, grew up Christian background, you know what I mean? Did not go to church and not, find myself in the church, but my family, I knew, I knew of a man named Jesus, right? And it took a while for me to kind of come around. Or let me not say I took a while. I'm gonna say God was with me, and here I am today. But I've tried different spiritual practices, right? I've done the things, I've tried the things, and so I think the reason why I'm so like go like Christian, like, you know what I mean? I'm so about it is because there's this sense of invincibility that I think America conveys. And there's this sense of ever consuming, ever consumption, always changing, always revolving, right? And it's very gluttonous and it's very open-ended and it's never enough, right? It's truly like the city with no walls, right? That's why every foreigner wants to come to America, right? Because here they can be whoever they want to be, right? Other countries, they have more rules and governance and how they kind of conduct themselves. And I know when we hear people talk about other countries and, their leadership or how the countries are, operated and what are their beliefs and the cultural norms, there's always sort of like this very negative criticism that I think kind of like really pervades all of the cultural history and understanding. And I think it's important to be mindful of like who is telling history today. And I think that's why for me, I leave an open door in regards to certain topics if I haven't experienced it, like, for example, being in other countries, because people will make you feel like, well, other people are just so oppressed, right? Because they have rules and bounds and they can't walk outside in their undergarments. And you know what I mean? Like here in America. And so yeah, a lot of people want to come to America because it's a city with no bounds, right? I mean, a city no bounds. I'm sorry, that's the Bible. It is a country where there are no bounds, right? Anything goes. And in that, what's very interesting is you can be whoever you want to be and it's ever changing. And so with all of that, I say that to say that, you find yourself taking in so much, right? You find yourself taking in so much. You find yourself doing anything, all kinds of crazy things, perverted things, like crazy stuff, right? And it messes with your psyche, it messes with your spirit to the point where you start ignoring your discernment, to the part where you start looking for someone to lead you and to guide you, right? And that's where American business practices come in, right? Because they create a need for you, they create a dependence for you, right? And so you can't think for yourself, and you can't, you know what I mean, without their services or their products, right? And so, I just think it's very interesting. I think it's very interesting to kind of look at how it all kind of funnels down. But it is important to have a sense of grounding. As you get older, you should be rooted. You should be firm. You should be at a point in your life where there are certain things you aren't going to do, and then there are certain things that you will do. Right now, we're going to have compassion for this very particular story, and I don't want this podcast to be me coming down on anybody or about anything, because we all make mistakes, and that's just life. And unfortunately, this young woman's life was taken. Now we all are going to go someday, right? We don't know our time. We don't know our place. We don't know how it's going to happen, right? So this is not to say, hey, this could be avoided and this is why y'all need to. No, that's not what I'm saying. And I think, like I said, when you're in something, who knows? He could have been a very loving person. He could have been charming. He could have been, we don't know. We don't know. But what I will say is that this sort of normalization of Black women taking themselves out of community, taking, and Black men, everybody, really, but obviously women, I'm speaking to women specifically because I think that this happens disproportionately with women and to women, taking themselves out of community, taking themselves out of common spaces, right? Taking themselves away from family, away from friends, all in pursuit of being a millionaire, right? All in pursuit of having more, all in pursuit of, climbing some type of ladder or doing whatever. It's a very dangerous thing to do, right? Black people, listen to me clearly. We are stronger together than we'll ever be isolated. And I think that's something that we don't really understand. And I know right now, for many people, right, compassionately, that's why I'm saying this for this podcast. For many of us, we are starting to individuate more and more, right? Because of survival, right? It's really getting to the point here. And, people are saying late stage capitalism, right? People, it's really getting to the point where we really don't have a choice but to individuate, right? A lot of us are having to make really, really hard decisions to survive, right? People's values are being crossed. People listening to all different kinds of people on the internet. They got different kind of ideologies, right? Our paradigms are constantly shifting, right? Like I said, everybody's kind of just all over the place, up in the air. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to kind of partner with anybody and really be rooted today, especially within the Black community. I personally feel, because, we've come so far, from being in a place where, we understand who we are and we have a common objective and we all want to get free and we all want to see, liberation for all of us. Right. I recently spoke about this with Tabitha Brown, and how Tabitha Brown, had come on, we were boycotting Target, we were organizing, and it was something that was effective. And I too was someone who kind of doubled down in saying that, well, maybe we shouldn't defend Tabitha, right? But I thought about it this morning, and I wondered, when Tabitha decided not to stand with us, right, and use her position of power and influence to stand with us, right, if she knew what it was that she was forfeiting, if she had an awareness of what it was that she was forfeiting. And so, Tabitha's like, hey, listen, I got to get my money. You know what I mean? Don't do that. Like, I'm trying to. So anyway, this is why I rock with Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? This is where I walk with Jesus Christ. This is where I read my books, right? I try to do my studies and I try to teach and I try to educate as much as I can, but I'm rocking with JC, man. You know what I mean? It's really crazy out here. This is not to bring about fear. Like I said, if you are somebody who is doing that work, you in that life, that's what you're doing. God bless you. And hopefully he'll deliver you at some point in your life, and your life could be a testimony. But that's straight up sex work, y'all. You got to know that. If you want to be pimped out, go right ahead. If that's what you want to do, go right ahead. You know what I mean? But just know that at the root of all of this, so many of us have been so unloved. So many of us have never had, like I said, a pair of new shoes on the first day. So many of us are so caught in this belief that if we can just do more, be more, have more, we'll be white. We too will garner equal power. You know what they were saying when they freed the slaves? They said, surely we're gonna be up. And we were, right? We built Black Wall Street, all these different things. But we were like, yeah, we're gonna be up. I mean, white people don't work anyway. We do all the work and we're gonna be good. And rightfully so. Right? I think our ancestors and then, those who were enslaved and then made free, I think that they would have been up too, right? Surely they would have been up. I mean, they built everything. Of course they can just go build their own and they can be up, but they never were. And we still ain't. So just think about that whenever someone's in your face talking this superficial sense of freedom, right? It's not a very intelligent, it's not a very wise thing to kind of push on young people, right? So many of us want our freedom, but we're not doing the work. You know what I mean? We free ourselves, right? Black people free themselves. We're not about to just get free because we want to be free. We're not about to just get free if we just adopt what it is that they want us to adopt and consume what they want us to consume and become more how they want us, become more of whatever it is that they want us to become. No, that's not how we're going to get free, you know? So at the end of the day, I think my biggest thing for any young woman listening to this is if you want to live that life, live that life. All right. But be a woman about it. I'm here to give you the game and let you know. I ain't gonna say the game because I ain't never played it, but I'm here to tell you what it is gonna be when you get out there. So at least that way you have an awareness of what you're walking into. You know what I mean? That's sex work. Period. That's extremely exploitive. Extremely. You're not about to be out here. You're not gonna be a housewife playing in a castle wearing cute dresses and no, because that's not how they see you on average. In the vast majority of cases, that is not how they see you. No, it's not. I don't care if they do marry you and they haven't pulled the trigger. It's you have no idea what you're gonna. I was looking at Eve. Now think about it. The rapper who just married that white billionaire. I said, Eve, what now? What was this about? You know what I mean? What is this about? That was strange. I thought that was a little weird. You know what I mean? So I don't know, y'all. For the love of money, you know what I mean? The love of money is the root of all evil. It is the root of all evil. It is surely going to bring corruption. It is surely going to bring destruction. If you need to worship somebody, worship your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You need to have boundaries. You need to be able to say, you know what? There are some things I'm not going to do. You know why? Because America says, do it all, have it all. As many as you can take, as much as you can fit, as much as you can consume, have it all. And it gets to the point where it gets so perverted, so disgusting, right? That you have to say no. You have to say no to some things. You know what I mean? It gets to a point where you have to say no, right? And people who adopt that type of spirit of like, just have it all, that type of that spirit that is like so American, engineered, right? Be turned every which way but loose. So don't even go down that path of destruction. Come on back to the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Live a very narrow life. Live a narrow life and your life will be peaceful. Your life will be peaceful. And prayerfully, the Lord will send you people in your life who are also persons of value and character. You know what I mean? And people who are also humble and trustworthy and, all the things. But the Lord says a faithful man who can find. All right. So I say all that to say, just know what you're getting into. This is not a safe situation. This is not a safe setup, and you can't blame the parents. Our parents can only do hey, listen, parents don't know. They can only do what they can do. Right. But I'm telling you right now, and I know I don't even listen to them. I know I don't have those type of girlies on my podcast, but I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to say that because I don't want to prejudge. I don't know who's listening. Right. But what I am going to say, what I am going to say is before you get on that flight to a place you cannot even pronounce, a place you don't even speak the language and could not point it out on a globe if it was in front of you, I'm going to need you to reconsider. I'm going to need you to reconsider. I'm going to need you to take a step all the way back. I'm going to need you to renew your mind. Renew your mind. All right? Because it gets to a point. It gets to a point. All right? Your steps need to be ordered by the Lord because otherwise, honey, you're going to be going wayward. You're going to be going wayward, and this type of thing can shorten your life. So let me not get too religious and high-mighty. All right, let me come on back down, back to Jalen, back to Christ, level-headed, centered, and aligned. This is serious. This is serious, and I don't want to hear that it doesn't, rappers, influencers, that it doesn't influence us because it 100% influences us. 100%. You know how many young women today in their 30s and 40s and 50s or whatever, right? 20s, right? I don't know why I said 40s and 50s. But how many young women today are trying to find their way and they look to the media because guess what? It's like you may not look up to your parent, or you may not look up to, whoever is in your life, right? Maybe these women have had lives or other choices or whatever. Y'all know Western psychology tells us if you don't want their life, then don't listen to them, right? Y'all know all this bad advice that's out there. um or maybe you have toxic family, like, it's very real, right? But when you begin to look to see, okay, how do I navigate life as a young woman, as a young Black woman, and you go to the media, you're very susceptible, you're very, very, very susceptible to this type of these type of narratives that can absolutely impact and alter your life, and it's not just, you know get the rich man that's hurtful, right? It's a lot of it. It's, I know one for me was when I would listen to Kevin Samuels. Yes, I know, right? But hey, hey, listen, right? It happens to everybody, right? I'm just sharing this because I lived it, I know it, and I know how social media can really impact your decisions. But, I'm listening to, these guys, these Black men, these Black influential men, right? Narcissistic, powerful, charismatic, right? And they're like, after 25, you're over the hump. You're over the hump. You're washed goods. You're nothing. Right. And it really speaks to the sort of like kinship that I think Black people have. And I think this is why I always say that I think Black people are bound by some, like, you can call it, children of Israel. You can go whatever you want to call it. All right. I'm not that deep into my study yet. But what I am going to say is I do think that there is this sense of, I have no idea. Maybe it is a spiritual relation. I'm not sure. I think that's a whole nother conversation that dates all the way back to slavery, priest, everything, right? But I think the way in which we speak to one another, I think it matters. And I think it really changes how we see ourselves as Black men and Black women. And I think that's why I try to be so mindful about the things that I do say. And I try not to make podcasts if I'm grieving or I'm going through a certain experience or whatever, right? But yeah, man. Yeah, man. I'm just, I'm just here to say, I'm just here to say that, you know, um, we got to be mindful of how we speak to one another. I think anybody who has a position of influence should be held accountable. And if it's not by the people, then it needs to, we're gonna pray that it's by God, right? Because that type of stuff alters your life and it changes your decisions. Here I was, 25, fine as I could be. I was fine now. You know what I mean? Didn't know it. And I'm listening to this older Black man sit online and say, you're over the hump. That I'm over the hump. That I'm not desirable. And granted, no, he wasn't speaking directly to me, but come on now. Yeah, you think white women are listening to this? No, they're not. So Black people, we got to be more mindful. We got to be more mindful of how we show up and the things that we say, because it's people, working class people, listening to this. Everyday average people listening, your cousins, you know what I mean? And it's impacting how we think about ourselves and how we see ourselves, right? And that's pushing people more into more and more self-hate, right? We don't need quote unquote white supremacists to do it, right? We're the agents of our own assassination now, right? And it starts with the language, right? Violence is not just in the physical sense, right? It could be emotional, it could be spiritual, it could be mental, right? And so I think we've kind of transitioned, and I spoke about that previously, but yeah. And so what I was saying, and I'm about to wrap up here, but what I was saying was that I'm learning to be more mindful. I'm even at a point now where it's like, man, I don't even want to listen to certain stuff, which I've kind of been on that a little bit for a while. And not by like in a judgy, because of my faith sins, but more so because I don't respect the person who's making the music. And I ain't talking about the white man at Atlantic Records. I'm talking about the person who's sitting here doing this and who's, moving like this, and they don't care. And I think it speaks to a lack of character. I know as much as we want to say, oh, they're pawns, or oh, they can't do this, they can't do. Yes, they can. Because there's artists out here who are Black, who are indie artists, who are maybe low key, not because they don't have the money or because they're not hip or whatever. No, it's because they refuse to exploit the Black community, because they refuse to exploit the people of Nigeria or whoever they are and whoever they come from, right? They're blessed. They're in their musical gifts. It may not be gospel. Right, but they still refuse to show up and move and conduct themselves in that way. And so that lets me know that the people that we praise and that y'all be worshiping and all that stuff, like, no, this is a choice, and they lack character, period. And they don't care who this affects. They don't care if little girls is getting snatched up. They don't care. You know what I mean? So you're not going to sit here and tell me that, oh, I have to do this. No, you don't have to do anything. You're choosing to do it. You're choosing to do it because you lack character, period. And so those are the people that are making the decisions. Those are the people that are influencing other people to make poor decisions, to go against their character, to go against their better judgment, to go against their faith, their wisdom, their discernment, and find themselves in really unfortunate situations just to say you got a little bit more money than the next person. And it's sad. It's sad, y'all. It's a very sad day for America. I'm going to go now. I think that's all I wanted to say. I hope you guys don't take this the wrong way, but I do just think it's important. I just feel like it's time. It's time we start having conversations. You know what I mean? Because when it gets to the point where it's affecting home base, when it gets to the point where it's affecting the people that are around you, like I literally remember I was downtown and there was like this 16-year-old girl. She had on like this, the outfit was crazy, bro. And she's just like walking down the street, no spatial awareness, no, because her mind can't even fathom like what's going on here. And the only thing I could think of was like Megan the Stallion. Like that was the first thing that came to my mind because that's when Megan the Stallion first came out, kind of like she blew up, right? At the time I was like 24, 25, 23, 24. I'm sorry. And like, you know, she's got the short shorts and like booty shorts was like this. And it wasn't like the boot, like it was like, you know, like just craziness, craziness, craziness. And so, yeah. Yeah. So, um, yeah, I think we need to get back to the point of like, if you ain't got nothing, well, we can't control what we can't control, but I be feeling like if you ain't got nothing to say, we don't need to hear from you. You need to be out of sight, out of mind. Cause come on, black people, it's been too long. And so we ain't free because we don't want to be free. There you have it.